Good morning, Candida.
Here we are on a Saturday morning.
Yep. And it's summer.
Yes.
Not sure when this particular episode will come out. But it's summer. It's cooled off. It was wicked hot.
Yeah, it was earlier was the heat wave for anyone who remembers.
Right. 3 or 4 day heat wave, which was just miserable as far as I was concerned.
Oh, it was bad.
It's cooled off. We've actually it's a little rainy out right now, had a little shower, and I've noticed different trees and bushes around my area just look like it's the end of August.
Which, really?
That was like looking a little shriveled. I don't know if the rain will perk them up a little bit, but it's like, wow.
I know. It seems sort of weirdly, the seasons seem weird. I don't know. Well, I think you saw it when you were here, the grapevine growing across my front stoop.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere along the line dropped in some grape seeds next to my front stoop, and it is now a massive vine. And like this time, it's just like literally I have to push it out of the way when you walk out the door. I have to get a trellis for it. So it's really cool looking, but because of all the rain and moisture, it's just like crazy. Right. Luckily, it didn't seem to shrivel. But so we'll see.
That's cool.
It's very fun. It's very fun to see. You can see the little teeny tiny grapevine. I'm sure the birds and or bugs will get them before I figure out what to do with them. But it's kind of
are they like Concord grapes?
Like the Concord grapes, I think.
Oh, we used to have Concord grapevine, and between the skin and the pit, there's not a whole lot. Yeah. Like if you have a whole lot of them, I did make jelly once.
Right. If you have a boatload.
But mostly the bird. I mean, there's just no. It's tough skin and big pits and.
Yeah. So it would be fun just to say, oh look, we made these grew here, but exactly. I'm going to get a trellis because I like the vine itself. So it could keep growing, but So those adventures in my non-gardening gardening. That's my whole approach. All right. Well, we're going to talk about another interesting article, sort of this topic that is so perpetually interesting, and there's so much to learn. Right. So this one's another one on the risks of screen time for kids.
Right.
You found it. You initially found the article.
We'll just say, and let me just go to the link right now. We'll just say it popped up in New York Times earlier this week or 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Real risk to youth mental health is addictive use, not screen time alone, study finds. So as you read through the article, it is... that could be a little bit of a misleading headline, which one of the commenters pointing out. The risk is still very low for suicide thoughts.
Right.
Yeah. And the study was 10 to 14-year-olds.
Right. And it's longitudinal, and it's the same cohort of kids that were assessed at 10 and 14. I found it a little hard, but granted, my reading was not as, very fine-tooth comb as it could have been, but I couldn't tell if they were also assessing them in between 10 and 14. But they started at 10 and they reassessed at 14. And again, this was a pre-existing database, the ABCD cohort, and there's like 11,000 kids in them. This was a subset of like 4,500, I think.
Right, something like that.
Right? And then they looked at screen time. They also looked at self-reported feelings of addiction,
of being unable to put the phone down.
Right. And of course, that number went up from 10 to 14, as we would expect. But ultimately, the findings were that the amount of hours on screens was not correlated with risk of suicide, thoughts of suicide or suicidal behavior or self-harm behavior. But that generated that sensation of being addicted and unable to stop it and craving it. That had seemed to correlate fairly directly So
And it was still very low.
it was still
Let's
a
just
very
be
low
clear on
risk.
that.
Yeah.
But if it's your child, you're going to be concerned.
That's right.
I would
That's right.
think.
Yeah,
If
of course.
if
Of
this is
course.
something that you noticed, and I went to, they had a couple of links to other sources, including the American Psychological Association,
Right.
and part of, between all the different places that I looked, I also looked at the United Kingdom is trying to make industry respond, the tech companies responsible for how they're presenting content to younger users.
Right.
And there's some states that have are in the process or already have enacted cell phone bans during school.
Right.
But one of the main takeaways that I took is, and people know this, that the way online content is presented to us is meant to be addictive.
That's right.
It's meant to make you want to stay and do it. They design it on purpose that way.
That's how they make money.
If you're an adolescent,
right,
or even younger, 10-year-old, you have, your brain is still developing. You don't have the ability to counter, to resist that as much as somebody who, like
who's
us
a
old
more
people
mature brain
who
with...
didn't go, and still sometimes it's a problem for us.
It's still a problem for adults, without a doubt.
But
and
I
some
thought it
more
was
so than others, right? Like,
right. And they also pointed out how in the APA article, how the effects amplify all the social skills and social, I don't know what to call it,
challenges and
challenges,
typical developmental stuff of that. We'll just call it stuff of adolescence, finding out who you are, connecting with a group, not feeling good enough, feeling better than, putting yourself down, putting other people down, little groups, the groups and the collections. It's
so
all
they call it
there.
Hypersensitivity to social feedback, which are those things.
Right.
So somebody says, oh, that outfit you wore was just stupid. If that happened when we were kids, we'd be like, okay, fine, I'm just not either.
Well,
screw them.
We might feel decimated by the comment for, a day, 2 hours, whatever, depending on the person. But ultimately,
then if it's now, there could be a picture included with this. Whereas if it was us, it's like, oh, all right, fine, I just won't wear that outfit ever again.
Yeah.
Or it would be like, but I like it, so I am going to wear it, and I don't care what you think.
Right.
Either of those could have happened, but it's more difficult now. Right. And then building in-person relationships is more difficult if you're depending on social media, and also susceptibility to harmful content. I mean, it could just lead you down any number of paths, which isn't good. And then that wanting to keep you on is like, oh, maybe I should try this, or oh, other kids are doing a thing that's not like, if everyone else is jumping off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge? Those comments.
And the algorithm, I don't know if they mentioned in the article, but it's algorithmic in the sense that if a young person looks up a pro eating disorder website,
right,
then they're going to start getting fed more and more eating disorder websites.
Exactly.
For example, as a particularly dark corner.
Right.
Especially.
And that is one of the examples.
Damaging.
That they gave.
One of the ones that it's awful. It's awful.
And then underdeveloped impulse control. So you just want to keep doing it. And then, like you said, you get pushed to different, and it could be anything. It could be like, oh, I really like the sports team. And then you get all of that stuff, and you just want to know every detail about all the players and, their schedule and whatever. Reliance on sleep. So, and this has come up. We've talked about this any number of times. If you're not sleeping, your brain's not getting the rest, your body's not getting the rest. It's just like makes life harder.
Right. And with developing in terms of the frontal lobe development, and this is from early childhood on, the newly developed circuits, they take more energy to facilitate and maintain function. So in other words, it's like learning a second language. I always use this example, like they're new skills. You're building them up, and you can find them in a practice conversation. But if you're in this country where you have this new language and suddenly it's an emergency and things are on fire, you're not going to be able to access those newly learned skills because they're new. They haven't grounded. So whether it's a toddler or an adolescent who's building and practicing those frontal lobe skills, if they're tired or, extremely stressed, they're even less available to them. They haven't been practiced enough. They go to sleep, they shut down a lot faster than than the impulsive side of things. So it becomes even more imbalanced than it is, in adolescence. There's the go system is much more powerful than the stop system.
That's a good way to put it. And I would say, and I see this, kids who don't sleep, regardless, whatever the reason. Sometimes it's related to their meds. Sometimes it's they didn't take their meds. Sometimes it's they were up playing a game. Right. Whatever the reason, they'll come into class and just say, "I'm too tired. I can't do this." And what are you going to get? Nothing to counteract that.
If you're too tired, you're too tired. I mean, it doesn't help to scold them or judge them at that point.
No, it's just it is what it is. Right. And so they miss new content. Right.
For sure.
And or fall behind, and then that's a whole nother set of problems for many people. Some people are not bothered by it as much as others, but still, that feeling of always trying to catch up in general, and
layer it with psychiatric challenges such as, say, anxiety, right? So you fall behind, and then that triggers an already elevated anxious response system, which then further disrupts the ability to, re-engage in the process or problem solve now. To happen because now the anxious brain has gone into a whole storytelling of, oh my God, I'm behind. I'm never going to do this. I can never do this. I'm so stupid. Or this is impossible. I'm never going to graduate high school. I'm going to, die alone. Like it goes, that's the anxious brain. Right. So layer that, and it's tired and it's more anxious. So it's just these spiraling factors, especially at this intersection, right? The sleep, school. Just picked anxiety as an example of one common, mental health concern in teens. Where it just keeps plugging in and making things harder. So getting sleep, and we, as you said, this just comes up constantly. One of the things about screens, is that the sleep disruption issue is so, central to this conversation. But I do think, coming back to the original article we were talking about, one of the interesting things they did there was they looked at different, they didn't just say screen time. They split it up into social media, mobile phones, and video games, right? So it was different, and the numbers were a little bit different from thing to thing.
Because playing a game, whether it's against yourself or the ones where you can play other people online, that's a different experience for most people, I would imagine. Yeah. Like you just get sucked into the game and you're having fun, and it's mostly good. Why would you do it if it's not fun?
It's not fun.
Versus, as we said, getting into being pushed into the algorithm of harmful suggestions, or
comparisons. Everyone out the so common thought error that happens in adults too, but is on steroids in teenagers, which is everyone else has it together but me, right? Which is so social media. We all did it, with or without social media. That's that big thing. Like, oh my God, they're so put together. Whatever. Right. Social media just sort of creates this like confirmation bias because people curate, what's on social media, only smiling, only all made up, only, at the gym, pumping iron for the guys,
Right.
You don't get to see the crash and burn. Nobody's posting that. So
right.
it actually confirms that very distorted, thought error, common, what we would call in, cognitive behavioral therapy or ways we intervene. We say that's an error, a repeated automatic thought error, and without social media, eventually you kind of grow out of that. You get to know more people in all kinds of settings. And you're like, oh, in fact, everybody's got a thing. Nobody's really got it together. And that's just maturation. But this just, I think, makes it so, I think Instagram is especially, prone to that just because it's these beautiful photo albums of, perfect vacations. And so,
different.
So I agree. I think like in video games, it's different. What's in the content? This is also a theme that's come up when we've talked about it, right? In what specifically content are you talking about? Whether you're talking about risks or benefits or harms from screens, but you can't just say screens anymore. That just doesn't cover it.
Right. Yeah. It's like that's, as we've said, that's where a lot of things live. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That part of many and probably even most people's lives at this point is in the screen, like us right now. We're doing this right now. But there's pluses and are you watching a baseball game that is going to be over?
Right.
And then maybe you watch the post-game show, but then you're done.
Right.
But if you're in a game, whatever the type of game it is, you're having fun. You're just one more thing, just around the corner. There's another thing.
And it's endless, right? It just as opposed to a sports game that ends. It just keeps going, right? There's always more levels, and there's always more people to join if you're playing online with other people and
new skills, new material,
new levels to get to. I don't play.
Obviously, we are not game players, but I hear enough around, and I've kind of
me too.
Enough reading and whatever to know some of these things, and it doesn't seem fun to me. So,
not my cup of tea. But
I'm an OF, whatever. Well, sometimes the students will ask me if I ever play, and I'm like, well, my level of playing is, Mario Kart, and I end up in the ditch half the time. I'm going backwards. I'm just bad at it. It's not intuitive to me at all.
Yeah.
But
there were some mention. So I think for me, this was like a good example of how things, just thinking differently as the research comes along, and the comments and replies to this article, to the New York Times article, were interesting. People had a lot of, I thought, interesting thoughts about it, and, looking at the limitations of the article. One thing that I think they tried to lean a little hard into the idea that because it was longitudinal, it suggested causation. But I just don't see that as the case, because if you got a 10-year-old who's already, there's already anxiety brewing, or ADHD is part of their story, or depression is brewing, that could very well be part of how they come to more addictive use. Right. So that may be part of how they come to that pattern that then leads to more mental health issues down the road. So I don't 100%, would say that whatever validity this data has, it is nothing that has to do with causation. You cannot draw that conclusion at all from this. I don't think, in my reading of it.
Right. And I would just like to also point out that several states have contemplated or are in the process of, and mainly what I read from it is whatever the law or regulation is in different states, it asks school districts to create policies around school time phone use. Either they're supposed to be turned off, put away.
Yep.
Obviously, there are, and there are exceptions. So
Right.
I know folks who have the diabetes monitors, those are hooked up to the phone. So
Right.
clearly a student in that situation would be allowed to have their phone. There's a few other, there might be some accommodations within the IEP
Right.
that a student would have access to their phone. I would think mostly for putting in reminders,
Right.
perhaps as a coping skill, you know,
Right.
5 minutes
Right.
looking at silly cats.
Right.
I'm not saying that's an accommodation,
but
but it could a
something.
coping strategy. But mainly it would be reminders, timers,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Right.
In most cases, so it is up to the individual school district or school program
Within these states that have created.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Some are more proscriptive than others.
Got it.
And of course, there is the case in Australia, which back in November, they banned social media for anyone 16 and under. And I've not yet seen data on how that is going because part of the criticisms from the outset were, first of all, students will figure out a way around it.
Yeah.
And or new, because it's specified, I thought this was unusual, it's specified the platforms, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, a few different ones, new ones will pop up. And who knows?
How do you keep up with that? You know?
Right. You just can't keep up. I was surprised that whoever wrote that specified instead of creating a definition that would be more general.
Right.
But students will find a way to get around it. But I think the bigger point is during school, you have to be more thoughtful because just as we were saying, it's like if you're distracted by and there's been studies where even the phone on the table, on the desk is a distraction, whether it's yours, whether it's somebody else's, whether it's on, it's upside down, right side up, whatever. It's a distraction.
Even having it there, I remember writing about this at some point, reading the original source article that it takes another I think well more than 10 to 15 minutes to reset their brain just after sort of being aware of their phone, even if they're not on it. So it's attention is the commodity, right? It's the commercial commodity on these platforms. And so learning and becoming aware of, you know, helping kids grow and learn into an understanding that their attention is theirs and that, you know, they don't want to be, to how to practice, you know, not being vulnerable to people who are preying on their attention and learning about what distracts them about technology and having higher, lower thresholds or higher indexes of suspicion around mental health issues, you know, associated with children who are struggling harder to disengage. You know, I think those are some common sense kinds of things that, I hate to say common sense, but themes that come up, you know, over and over.
And I will just add into that this whole idea that people think they can multitask and they can't. It's not a thing. I tell people that and they'll be like, I can. And then 10 minutes later, they ask me what I just said.
Yeah. It's the neurologic, the imaging, the functional imaging research is our brains do one thing at a time. And if you think you're doing two things at a time, it's your brain, you know, rapidly going back and forth. And sure, some people have a little more flexibility and facility with that, but ultimately it is going to be, you know, there's a limit to how much you can do. And people way overestimate how good they are at it. Any studies that look at that, people are over, and this is from kids to adults, overestimate their capacity for sort of multitasking. So learning about our focus and our intelligence and the skill and what it is and what it means is, you know, going to be a really important part certainly as we go forward into ongoing world of tech and screens and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So once again, not a magic. There's no magic bullet or cure or whatever you want to call it. Wait
until 8th is at least. I think I've seen some other, recommendations of 15 years old at the bare minimum, 13 or 14. before any social media
Yeah.
at all. And if the communities need to really try to come together on that, because brains are barely ready then and certainly not ready before that. Realistic understanding of how screens are going to, play in people's lives, families' lives, kids' lives, and increasing our knowledge base and our skill set for education about helping kids learn, helping families learn all, what this means for our brains and our attentional skills, and letting us use it as a tool instead of it using us as a tool for money making.
Well, there's that saying, if it's free, it's not, you are the product.
You are the product, right? It's not actually
it's like
free.
they want your attention and somehow causing you to want do whatever different things
Something
that you
they
might
will.
not otherwise, or to have an increased sense of urgency about it.
Yeah. So it's an evergreen topic, will continue to be, and we certainly want to hear from people if you have thoughts about this, if you read the article or have experiences that you think speak to this, or have other information. Please let us know and bring it to the table. So we're happy to keep having this conversation. It is so important and isn't going anywhere.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I was going to say we have one good thing, but I have one interesting thing that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
I did a TikTok about it, but I think I can. It's my own commentary, so I could say it here too.
Sure.
I use an AI scribe now in my practice, where it takes a transcript, and then the benefit being that I can spend more of my time, really focused on my patient, not on my computer and typing and trying to track what somebody says. So it records it, and then it generates, in a typical medical note fashion, the content. Now, I always have to review it in detail, make sure it's correct, whatever. And I was seeing someone, a kid who was having a fair amount of outbursts and difficulty doing things, right? So, and my impression, and I said this throughout the transcript, is that this child was diagnosed with anxiety, and there's a special code for, it used to be called impairing emotional outbursts. Now it's something more general, but that was the code. I never said anything about oppositional defiant disorder. And when it generated the note, what diagnosis did it put in? Oppositional defiant disorder. We don't like to use this word hallucination, but it created that out of whole cloth. I never said those words. It decided that given that data, it should use it. That is a diagnosis I never use for a multitude of reasons. We may talk about it at some point, because I think it's really important to talk about. But it took psychiatric diagnoses that had a treatment, diagnosis, and plan, and decided to use this diagnosis that basically just blames kids and parents. Bad kid, opposition.
Wow. Yeah. So
I was shocked. I was like, what? I never said those words. Like, do not, So it just speaks to, there are clearly benefits to having this, available to me, but we have to be so cautious and careful about how we use it and what it generates. Anyway, it was just interesting to me.
No, the warning still prevails for whatever you use AI, any kind of note or review, or even, when you Google search now, it will give you it's like, that may or may not be correct. A lot of times it's probably just fine. Yeah. But sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it's not. And if you're using ChatGPT, clearly you have to check if it gives you a reference. You need to go and check the reference yourself, and I think where some of this stuff is super helpful as sort of starting points, or creating some initial things, generating some concepts, but that you cannot rely on it. It is not a thoughtful, it's not a human thoughtful brain. It's spitting back. And that was a biased response, right? ODD, and again, so much bias, implicit bias in that diagnosis. And that just told me how much of that is baked in to the
Right.
stuff that's
Yeah.
happening. So anyway,
Yeah,
interesting, but not good.
Because the information that's out there is not bias free.
Of course not.
So
Of
which
course
people
not.
sometimes forget that just because it's it came from somewhere.
Yeah. Right.
So
It's scraped. The information is scraped from the rest of the internet world, digital, universe. So when you cumulatively do that, it will represent and come to bring the biases that are present. It's a couple of times this program has sort of mentioned something about diet and exercise when we've been talking about body size or metabolism. Yeah. I never talk about like weight and diet in any kind of like proscriptive way. That's just, and it comes up as, patient encouraged to, continue. And so again, and I hadn't even thought of it so much, but I've noticed there's that bias, that theme comes up not infrequently. So it's fascinating.
Interesting.
And important. So anyway, I just thought it was an interesting thing that I noticed. Came across my, professional work this week and thought it was worth mentioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anybody out there using AI and the intersection of education, mental health, or how you feel like it's affecting your mental health, your child's mental health, your child's learning. Again, we would love to hear from people. So please do that. If you like this content, please follow wherever you got this podcast. Like us, follow us. You'll get the downloads as soon as they come out. Check out our website.
Write a review if you feel so inclined. And it doesn't have. It could just be very short.
Yeah.
Just saying it helps.
Yeah, it could be an emoji. It could be a couple of words. And if you don't love what we're saying, maybe send us an email first at the website so we can chat about it and see what your concerns are. But if you like it, please give us a few words. That would be so good, so we can get this conversation out to more people. Right, it really helps us.
Right.
All right, great. Well, we'll catch you on the next one, the next episode of Mental Health Goes to School.